Welcome gamers! Today we're going to take a look at Sega's classic arcade Formula 1 racing game called Super Monaco GP. So this game was first launched to arcades back in 1989 and it utilized Sega's X-Arcade hardware, and believe it or not, this game ran at a whopping 60 frames per second. So this was state of the art for the time, although the graphics really didn't seem like they were anything to write home about. I mean, by all means, this was not exactly super high resolution, but the game did boast some pretty colorful sprites, fast-paced gameplay, and the high frame rates did make it a lot of fun to play. So, the game depicted the classic Monaco Grand Prix, with players starting out in a preliminary race that would determine their starting position in the actual GP itself. And so that's what you just saw here. That was just the preliminary race, and we're going to start out in the 5th position for the actual Grand Prix. And so the game featured 3 modes of play, with players choosing between automatic and manual transmission modes. So the automatic transmission mode offered less power, while the manual transmission modes offered exponentially more power, but at the cost of having to constantly shift gears. And so, unfortunately, the arcade version of this game only included a single course. It was just the Monaco GP and nothing else. Although later PC and console versions of this game did include additional maps to race on, those versions really didn't feel playable. I didn't like them. I thought the graphics were terrible and they just did not feel playable at all. The only version of this game that I really liked was the original arcade version, which is the one that was shown here. And so there were several versions of this game that were released to arcades, partly because of a legal controversy that was surrounding this game at the time, which I'm going to touch more on in just a moment here. And also because of differing cabinet types that Sega made use of, some of which boasted state-of-the-art innovative features for the time. And so Sega had incorporated innovative electromechanical features with the intent to add a sense of realism to the gameplay, such as the use of force feedback for the steering wheel within the game, as well as Sega's air drive system that mechanically moved portions of a game's cabinet, more typically the seat. And the system would also blow air into the cabinet, such as when a vehicle accelerates, also to add a sense of depth and realism to the gameplay. Now, while the arcade version only had a single course, there was a wet conditions mode that you could unlock if you placed 3rd or better in the GP, in the original GP itself. And so the game was a lot of fun to play. I mean, it's just really challenging. In fact, I had a hard time putting this video together. It took me several tries. I was able, you can see, my first race here, I actually ended up getting up to the 1st position, and then I just snubbed a wall right towards the end of the race, and I ended up in 2nd, so it was really tough. This is a really challenging game. Made use of very similar parallax scrolling to what we saw in the Outrun series. The graphics look good, like I said, really colorful sprites, but it's still kind of low res. And so, anyways, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the legal controversies surrounding this game. So, you may have noticed at the opening of this video, you may have seen that Formula 1 race car that has sort of the Marlboro logo on it, and you may have also noticed the banners and the races so far that depict the Marlboro logo. So they really didn't actually say Marlboro, but they kind of parodied it, and it was obvious what those logos depicted, which was Philip Morris Marlboro brand, and Philip Morris didn't take very kindly to that, and they ended up filing a lawsuit against Sega demanding that all the arcade versions have all identifiable information about the Marlboro brand removed from the games, including any artwork, and Sega did comply, and they did update cabinets. They did send kits for arcade operators to update their cabinets to remove all traces of the Marlboro cigarette brands that were in the games. And so critics, kind of blasted Sega. A lot of the anti-tobacco lobby filed complaints to the government. They were not happy with Sega. They were even more unhappy with Philip Morris, believe it or not. In fact, many critics kind of wrote off the lawsuit that Philip Morris had filed against Sega. They kind of wrote it off as just being a PR stunt. Because here's the thing, it seemed very hypocritical that, here Philip Morris is saying, oh, we don't want our advertisements to be placed, for our tobacco products to be placed in video games because that might be advertising to children, when at the same time you are fighting the anti-tobacco lobby to keep your advertisements all over billboards, all over America, in print everywhere, in magazines, in books, and all over television. So, it's hard to argue that they weren't trying to advertise to kids, because they're trying to advertise in every means that, Americans used to consume information back during that time. We didn't have much of the internet back then. And so, people, a lot of the anti-tobacco lobby was very critical of Philip Morris for their lawsuit, and I would agree, it did seem very hypocritical that they went after, Sega, for tobacco, when here they're trying to advertise this stuff everywhere. And it's kind of odd. I don't understand. I'm kind of confused as to why would Sega willingly incorporate tobacco ads into a video game? And so that's kind of a question that a lot of people have. Well, here's the thing. Back in the 1980s, 1990s, back in that era, it was not unusual for tobacco brands to advertise their products on Formula race cars and NASCAR and everything else. It was very typical. You saw Camel ads, Marlboro ads, they were all over NASCAR, Formula racing, etc. So it was not unusual to see those ads on actual race cars in real life. But it was like, maybe Sega took it just a little bit too far when they decided to go and put it, in a video game on the race cars and games itself. And so, yeah, a lot of the anti-tobacco lobby did not like that. Sega did have some complaints filed against them, but they did work very well to try and remedy this situation as best they could. And so anyways, that is Super Monaco GP. A lot of fun to play. Like I said, it's, sadly, it was just this one course. I wish that they had included a few, additional courses with the actual arcade version itself. I do understand they included the wet conditions mode, and that was kind of fun because it was, it was a little bit trickier. You could spin out easier. You didn't have as much grip. And the graphics were cool, and I really liked that. But like I said, I think there was a version on the Atari ST. Yeah, they were really bad. The graphics were horrible. The frame rates were really bad. You didn't get 60 frames per second like you're seeing here. But definitely a lot of fun to play, and so I definitely recommend playing this in MAME. It does run pretty good. The graphics are pretty good. The graphics are spot on in MAME. The controls aren't perfect, but definitely good enough to play. So anyways, that is Super Monaco GP. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest videos. Be sure to check out our massive playlist of classic arcade games from the front of our channel if you get a chance. And I'm going to go ahead and tune out, but I'm going to go ahead and finish this race. But I'm going to go ahead and tune out the commentary from here. Many thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.
3 seconds to first place. Okay, keep it up. seconds to first place. The wheel left. Go get 'em. Okay, keep it up. Three seconds to first place. Okay, keep it up. Three seconds to first place. Okay, keep it up. One second to first place. One second to first place. Nice driving! Way to go! Okay, keep it up. 2 seconds to first place. 2 seconds to first place. Okay, keep it up.